Hello everybody, my name is KingStix, and in this video I'm going to be showing you the strongest mid laners to play in this patch 9.10 in solo queue to carry your ranked games. We're going to be listing them off in S, A, B, C, D, E, F, and one tricks only. I wouldn't recommend picking any mid laner that's D and lower. Before we jump into this video, a huge disclaimer: if you win with these champions, if you enjoy them, you have decent win rates, keep playing them. Just because they're not great doesn't mean you shouldn't still be allowed to enjoy and use them. So if you do see me put them in a low tier, don't get too frazzled by it, just take it for what it is. Mid lane has heaps of diversity. The strongest things in this meta right now are mid laners that can abuse Glacial Augment, taking GLP, and mid laners who have high mobility. Let's start out with a strong one, and that is Ahri. She is currently S tier. She has the option to go Glacial Augment and be a massive CC machine for her team by building things like the GLP and building the Ghost even, and just dishing out insane amounts of CC for picks and team fights. And if you really wanted to, you could take her with Electrocute, but I would highly recommend going for the Glacial Augment. She's really strong. She's good in just about every meta. She has true damage, highly mobile, decent wave clear, an amazing champion to pick up if you're looking for an AP character. Next up, we have Katarina. I would put her in A tier or low S tier, but the thing is, she's a bit of an awkward champion to play. Even though she's really not that complex, the timings on her and the matchup knowledge is pretty intense, so we're gonna go ahead and drop her in the one tricks category. If you're not willing to one-trick Katarina, don't play her, because the value you're going to be getting at her isn't enough to justify picking her. Next up, we have Ziggs. This is a really awkward champion to place. Theoretically, he's good because of his turret-taking capabilities. The issue with Ziggs is he's extremely easy to gank. His only real escape tool, being his W, is on a very long cooldown, and if he's always holding on to it, he has very little kill pressure to push enemies into his E, also for that little bit of extra damage. By having such little kill pressure in lane and always being fairly easy to gank, we can't put Ziggs up too high, so we'll leave him around the CD area. Next up, we have Azir. He used to be god tier at one point, but the pros just kept abusing him. They wouldn't leave him alone. Bear in mind, guys, this list is for solo queue right now, for climbing and winning your games. With that being said, please do not pick Azir. He takes way too long to scale. He has almost no kill pressure in the early and mid game. Another huge issue with Azir in solo queue is if your jungler isn't consistently giving you blue buffs, you have trouble shoving out your waves and having the pressure that Azir should have. So we are going to be putting Azir down here. He's also relatively difficult to play. We could put him in the one tricks category, but we'll go ahead and leave him here in the F, because people picking him in solo queue is just disgusting. Speaking of another disgusting animal, we have Swain. He's not quite as bad as Azir. He doesn't scale as hard, obviously, but he's quite a bit stronger much earlier in the game. We'll go ahead and leave him around the DE section. I think you could argue him into either one of these, but we'll just set him here for right now. Next up is Annie. I don't recommend anyone actually plays Annie unless you're trying to learn mid lane, or unless you intend on one-tricking her. For that reason, we'll leave her here in the CB category. We'll put her as a low B. She's a one-trick champion, or if you're learning mid lane, for that reason, she can stay there. Next up is Fizz. In some people's opinions, he is S tier. I think this is honestly outrageous with how difficult he is to play consistently and snowball your games. With the fact that he doesn't scale very well, it's very difficult to argue him into the S category. For that reason, I'm going to have to put him in the one tricks area, because there's a champion who can do what Fizz does much better and scales infinitely harder. Can you guess who that champion is? Yep, that's Kassadin. Kassadin easily makes it into S tier. Do keep in mind, he is not a flex pick character. You can only really play him mid lane. Not only that, but you don't want to play him against an AD mid laner like Zed or Talon, or you're in for a very bad time, because your passive is going to be doing essentially nothing. So Kassadin S tier, yes. yes. However, don't pick him against AD mid laners or it's going to be very, very bad. Next up is 𝐒𝐿𝐈. She's pretty damn strong. I'm tempted to put her into the one tricks category. However, I don't feel like she's on the same difficulty level as a Katarina. She's very forgiving with her invisibility and with how many dashes she has. So we're going to go ahead and leave her in the A category. She's borderline one trick material, so don't play her unless you've put in plenty of practice. But right now, she can snowball games really hard in the early and mid game. In the true late game, yes, she falls off, but she's definitely worth it for the mid game. Next up is Garen. This is more of a low elo or Korean thing. Garen can be really annoying against mages because they just can't burst him down. He starts Doran Shield, you just can't get through him, and he's super tanky. He'll start roaming, and if you don't respect him, he might even one-shot you. For that reason, we're gonna put Garen in the CD category. Let's go ahead and put him with the Ziggs. Next up, we have Irelia. She used to be S tier, however, they took away the damage reduction she got against magic damage on her W, making mage matchups kind of difficult for her, especially if that mage has CC like an Annie or an Ahri, making her a highly situational pick, only really good against AD mid laners, and even then. So for that reason, we're gonna leave her in the C category. And she's also borderline one trick, but we'll leave her in the C. That feels a little bit more appropriate. Next up, we have Sylas. He's been bouncing around these three tiers for quite a while now. He is, however, in here with 𝐒𝐿𝐈. You could easily put 𝐒𝐿𝐈 in front or Sylas in front. They're both are solid picks for the early and mid game, high snowballing, and then they both fall off very hard. Both have solid wave clear. Don't pick them if you're a late game player, but if you are looking to snowball your lane and start roaming around, or even getting solo kills, these are amazing champions. Highly recommend picking them if you are duo with your jungler to help give extra pressure. Next, we have Aurelion Sol. Obvious where this guy's going. He's going to be going right there, right in front of Katarina, because Aurelion Sol mains can give heaps more pressure than Katarina. Now, if we're talking about low elo, real low elo, then yeah, Kata's in front, Sol's in the back. But if we're talking about mid-high elo, we'll put Sol in the front. Next up, we have Malphite. He's fallen off quite a bit in the mid lane because of strong options like Cass and Ahri, 𝐒𝐿𝐈, Sylas. They can all really dodge his ultimate, beat him in the early mid. For that reason, we are going to leave him down here by the Irelia. Next up, we have Morgana. She is an obvious high B or low A tier. For the sake of this video, let's just put her in the B tier. Next up, Riven. She can't really compete in the mid lane meta right now. She's too easy to gank, and with the team map price increase, it makes it difficult for her to consistently shove waves in the early and mid game. For that reason, we're going to have to leave her down here by this area. It's hard to say quite where to put her, whether it's in front or behind Garen. I'd say it's a little bit behind him. All right, next up we have Rumble, obvious B tier. He's actually pretty damn good mid, especially against melee champions. He tears them up super hard with the insane buffs he's gotten across the past 10 patches. Next up, we have Taliyah. She's in a really interesting spot where one tricks are absolutely dominating with her, but in general, she's really freaking awful. For that reason, we're going to have to set her in the one tricks, but if I wasn't going to put her in the one tricks, she'd be floating somewhere around the BA category. But for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and plop her in the one tricks. Next champion we're looking at is Pantheon. He's been popular in the past, so I figured I should include him. He really isn't that great. He's only good as the mid laner whenever lethality is OP, and lethality currently isn't OP. For that reason, we're going to stick him roughly in the D or E tier. We'll stick him right there. Next up, we have Diana. The issue with Diana is there's AP melee champions that do her job much better with things like 𝐒𝐿𝐈 and Sylas. Not only do they offer a lot more sustained damage, they have a lot better kits pre-6 and a lot more carry potential than Diana does. Diana does have maybe slightly higher single target 1 second burst damage, but overall she's just not nearly as good, so we'll put her in the... Next up is Karma. She's not really a thing anymore. For that reason, we'll just stick her in the D. Next up is Corki. He is basically like an Azir. He does mostly magic damage, he has great range, and he takes forever to scale. But boy, when he scales, does he hurt. We'll go ahead and put him in the high C division. He's an amazing late game champion. And Talon, we are going to have to put him in the S division. He's by far the strongest melee AD assassin right now in the mid lane. He has insane roams, decent scaling. He's not the best late game, but he can still get picks. But his early and mid game are just phenomenal. Once he has team at, just perma clear, gets lethality, and gets off disgusting kills in solo queue. Next up is Fiora. This is more of a Korean thing. Same thing with the 𝐒𝐿. However, we are going to put 𝐒𝐿 higher up than Fiora. We'll put Fiora right there. And then 𝐒𝐿, he is actually a very interesting champion. We're going to put him in B. He has some really interesting counterplay for things like 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈 with his pull, and for things that are squishy like Talon in our melee. Devastates them with Conquer and just smashing their head in with his autos. Really overwhelming to play against for a select few champions. Next up is Jace. He's a really big lane bully. His scaling isn't the best. With the Man Moon buffs, have brought him back a little bit, but overall, he's still not a great champion. We'll go ahead and put him in one tricks. If you don't one trick Jace, you're not getting any real value out of him, so we'll just stick him right here. Next up is Kennen. He is a better top laner for sure. However, his mid lane isn't that bad. So for that reason, we'll stick him in the B tier. Next up is Lux. In a solo queue environment, she's actually really damn strong. As long as you don't get yourself killed in laning phase too early, you're fine. Don't die in laning phase, play for the mid and late game, you're golden. Your W shield is so big, you land it on your AD carry or whoever the enemies are all inning and they won't die, pretty much guaranteed. She's high B or low A. Very, very low A. Let's go ahead and put her right here. Morgana is arguably better, but she's more situational than Lux is. Next up is LeBlanc. She's A tier. Just stick her right there. Lissandra with Aftershock nerfs. She's struggling a little bit. We'll go ahead and set her right here in C tier. Next up is Echo. He's in the same boat that Diana's in as an AP mid laner. Next up is an easy champion that all of you people new to mid lane or just want some really freaky easy elo should play, and that is Malzahar in the S tier for the same reason that Ahri is, because he can take advantage of Glacial Augment, the GLP. He can also take full advantage of Rylaia's and Liandry's, pretty much one-shots anyone with a few abilities in the mid and late game. Really devastating champion to play against, really easy to play as, very safe. Cheesy easy. He can hold himself in lane. Next up is Cassiopeia. We're going to put her in the one tricks. There aren't any really good Cassiopeia players who aren't one tricks for that reason. We're going to have to set her in here. She's almost like an AP version of Jace. Lots of poke in lane. We're going to set her right there. Next up is Ryze. I'm going to get a lot of fleck for this one. The thing about Ryze is he's good in pro play and he's good in really high elo in League of Legends whenever lanes don't just int out of their mind for no reason. The thing is, in low mid and low high elo, there are a lot of kills and a lot of deaths, and Ryze takes at least 2 items to scale, minimum, 2 full items. That's usually too late in the game to have any real impact, and in the true late game, mages like Kennen are a lot more useful in team fights. We're not going to put Ryze in front of Kennen. We're going to put him in front of Echo. And I am very tempted to put Ryze in the one tricks, but for the sake of this video, we're not going to because I don't want to have the one tricks completely filled. So we're going to have to be nitpicky. Next up is Yasuo. He is an S tier champion, but his kit is too difficult for the vast majority of League players to fully tap into. You got to be a Yas main to be an S. Otherwise, Yas is floating around C tier. For that reason, we're going to stick him in the one tricks, but we're going to put him pretty high up there. Overloaded kit. That's really the only way to put it. Next up is Anivia. She's good in iron, she's good in bronze, she's good in diamond, she's good in challenger. She's just a great champion, but you really gotta one trick her. Using that wall mechanic and your Q to lock them down inside of your ultimate takes a lot of muscle memory and a lot of practice. For that reason, one trick, and we'll set her right here. I feel like this is a pretty fair spacing. Fizz might be up a little too high, but overall this feels right. Okay, next up is 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐻. He can go for the Glacial Augment style play that Ahri and Malzahar go for. The issue with 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐻 is he's a lot easier to gank. He doesn't have the shield Malzahar has, and he doesn't have the dashes Ahri has. For that reason, we can't put 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐻 up too high, but we will put him down here near the Lux and Morgana. You could put him in front of Lux or behind Lux. Next up, we have Aatrox. If you're high elo, this is going to be an A or a low S. If you're low mid elo, I wouldn't really recommend it because Aatrox doesn't scale. For that reason, we'll just set him here in the A category. I'm having to play both fields a little bit. Depending on your elo, this tier list will be a little bit different, give or take a tier and a half. However, for the majority of players, this should be fairly accurate. Next up is Zilean. He's very similar to the playstyle of a Morgana or a Lux, high C or low B category. At this point, he's also kind of S if you have a hyper carry. Zilean fluctuates really hard, so it's difficult to place him. He's so team comp dependent. Oh, this is tough. Let's go ahead and just set him here in B. Next up, we have Vladimir. He is an S tier, plain and simple. He's a bit of a one-trick champion, but he is easy enough to play. We're just going to set him here in the S tier. Insane damage. He's not too good in the early or early mid game. He needs at least one full item, preferably 2 full items before he can start making those 1v9 plays. He is definitely worth picking up in your mid lane arsenal. Insane champion, really good in team fights. Next up is Karthus. Tempted to put him in one tricks, we're not going to. Instead, with how weak Dark Harvest is, I feel like this is a fair spot. Next up, we have Cho'Gath. He's fallen out of favor. His AP scalings have gone down. For that reason, we're going to have to put him in the C tier in front of Malphite. Then we have Dopa himself, arguably #1 S tier, while at the same time for everybody else, he is hardly B tier. And honestly, he is a one trick. If you do not have really good macro play, don't understand pretty much every aspect of the game, from wave mechanics to wave pushing, when to push, how to pull, and roaming with junglers and moving off your level 5 to level 6 to ults, just really everything. You got to be a good player to main this champion. He's almost like an AP Pantheon. And then we have Veigar. In low elo, he's easily A tier. Everything taken into account, his wave clear isn't that great early, and he takes so long to scale that we're going to set him right here around the Annie. And then we have Zed. He's a one trick. There's no other way to put it. We'll set him right here. That's a fair spot. And then we have Xerath. Ooh, this is a toughie. This is a big toughie. He's in the same boat as Veigar. His wave clear isn't great early on. It's not like an Echo or a Talon. But once he gets those items, it's very similar to a Rise. For that reason, we'll set him here with these 3. Okay, Nocturne, he's trash. He's only good whenever lethality is overtuned. And then he can go Electrocute, lethality mid, and one-shot some noobs. For that reason, we'll set him right. Let's put him right here. We'll put him in D tier. And then we have Neeko. She is a really awkward champion. She's decent at all points in the game, but landing her ultimate can prove to be very difficult if your team doesn't have any kind of CC to help you set it up. It's very predictable and easy to see it coming. She's not the best in lane phase, doesn't have that much kill pressure. She doesn't necessarily scale the best. Pretty much rate her with a Lissandra. She's low B or really high C. Let's go ahead and just put her in really high C. And then we have Victor. The only thing that really made him good was the Frozen Gauntlets, but then they nerfed that build path on Victor and nerfed Victor's Q, so he can't really be played in the top. And then as a mid laner, he doesn't quite scale with these S tier characters. We'll go ahead and set him here in the high D category. Next up, we have Orianna. We'll put her in the B. She's along the lines of these supporty style champions like the Morgana and Lux. And then finally, we have Syndra. She's pretty much shit tier. She's not very good. Her scaling isn't the best. She's fairly easy to gank as long as her stun isn't up. She's very squishy. If you could negate her stun with an ultimate like Malphite or a Morgana shield or some long range damage, she's essentially useless. She's only ever good when mid lane in general is bad because of her CC. For that reason, we're going to have to place her in the... That's fair, right there. That's a good spot. She's better than these off-meta mid laners. She's better than Corki and Diana, but is she really better than Neeko and Lissandra? For sure, she's not. This tier list looks extremely awkward and goofy in hindsight. There's only one champion in E and one champion in F. Mid lane is a lot more situational than jungle in my opinion, since it's a head-to-head matchup. There are a lot more nuances in that sense, since a jungler can just avoid their matchup and focus more on lanes or farming. For that reason, if I did this over again, for mid lane, I would only do S, A, B, C, and D tier. I feel like having an E and an F was a bit much. Looking at this list in hindsight, I'm going to make a few changes to make it more palatable. Nocturne into E. We're going to draw Karma into F in front of Azir, obviously. And then we're going to go ahead and drop Pantheon down as well. And then Riven, she can go right here. Garen can stay where he is because of his niche position. And this is the mid lane tier list for patch 9.10. Let me know what you guys think about these picks down in the comments below. And remember, depending on your elo, this tier list could change a little bit. So don't take these too seriously. Just take it as a general guide of, maybe I shouldn't necessarily play these champions. Maybe these are just a little bit situational, and maybe I should focus more on playing the S and the A tier. That is going to wrap up this video though. If you guys enjoyed it and want to see more content like it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help out a lot. My name is KingStix. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.